He was born into wealth and privilege. She was just the help, invisible, forgotten. When arrogance met desperation, one cruel invitation to Paris was meant to be her ultimate humiliation.
How would you like to see Paris? I'll dress you in Dior and feed you caviar just to watch you squirm.
Sure, I've never seen Paris.
But when the maid stepped into that glittering Parisian ballroom, she didn't just belong. She outshined everyone there. The man who planned her downfall found himself falling hard.
This wasn't how it was supposed to go.
You were supposed to hate seeing me belong.
Now a billionaire's son must choose between his family's fortune and the woman who showed him what real class looks like. But will his father's threats destroy their love before it can bloom? And can a maid from the wrong side of society win the heart of a man who once wanted to break hers? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you're watching from today. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of the Devereux mansion. Michaela Dean, a 26-year-old black woman with gentle eyes and a quiet demeanor, moved silently through the grand dining room. She carefully dusted each crystal chandelier piece, making sure not to miss a spot. After working as a live-in maid for the wealthy Devereux family for over a year, she knew exactly how they liked things done. "More coffee, Miss Dean," demanded Mrs. Day, Vereux without looking up from her tablet. "Right away, ma'am," Michaela replied, quickly setting down her duster and reaching for the silver coffee pot. This was her life, invisible yet essential. The Devereux family rarely acknowledged her presence unless they needed something, but Michaela didn't mind. She had plans of her own. Every night after her long shift ended, Michaela would sit at the small desk in her servants' quarters and count her savings. She dreamed of opening a flower shop one day. Nothing fancy, just a small place filled with beautiful blooms that would be all hers. She'd even picked out a name, Dean's Blooms. "Just 8 more months," she whispered to herself as she updated her savings spreadsheet. "Then I'll have enough for the down payment on that empty storefront on Maple Street." Michaela also sent money home each month to help her younger brother, who was studying engineering at Community College. Their parents had passed away years ago, and she'd promised to make sure he got the education they always wanted for him. The next morning, Michaela was polishing silverware in the kitchen when her phone buzzed. It was a text from her brother. "Got an A on my engineering project. Your support makes it all possible, sis. Love you." Michaela smiled. Moments like these made all the hard work worthwhile. Her peaceful moment was interrupted by the sound of laughter coming from the main living room. Lucien Devereux, the 30-year-old heir to the family fortune, had arrived with his friends. Tall, with sharp features and cold blue eyes, Lucien carried himself with the arrogance that came from never having to worry about money a day in his life. "I need to finish setting up for their lunch," Michaela reminded herself, gathering fresh napkins from the linen closet. As she approached the living room, she slowed her steps when she heard her name mentioned. "So, Lucien, are you bringing your usual model to your birthday gala in Paris next month?" asked one of his friends, a young man with slicked back hair and an expensive watch. Lucien chuckled. "Actually, I've been thinking of something different this year." "Different how?" asked another friend, a woman in a designer dress who was sprawled on the couch. "I should bring a maid this year," Lucien said with a smirk. "Let the aristocrats see how far beneath me someone can be. Maybe I'll dress her in Dior and feed her caviar just to watch her squirm." His friends erupted in laughter. "You mean like that quiet one? What's her name? The one who's always cleaning?" the woman asked. "Michaela," Lucien supplied. "Can you imagine? She'd be completely out of place, wouldn't know which fork to use. Probably never even heard of half the food served. It would be the entertainment of the evening." Michaela felt her cheeks burn with humiliation. She had always known how the family viewed her, but hearing it spoken so plainly hurt more than she expected. Still, she squared her shoulders and entered the room with the napkins, pretending she hadn't heard a word. "Ah, speak of the devil," Lucien said, noticing her. "Michaela, perfect timing. We were just discussing my birthday celebration in Paris next month." Michaela nodded polite lie as she arranged the napkins on the dining table. "I'm sure it will be lovely, Mr. Devereux." A mischievous glint appeared in Lucien's eyes. "Actually, I was thinking of bringing a guest from the household staff this year. How would you like to see Paris?" His friends stifled their laughter, clearly expecting her to stammer or become flustered. Instead, Michaela looked him directly in the eye and replied calmly, "Sure, I've never seen Paris." The room fell silent. Lucien's smug expression faltered for a moment before he recovered. "Well then," he said, clearing his throat, "I guess that's settled. You'll join me in Paris for the weekend of my birthday gala." His friends exchanged shocked glances. "Are you serious, Lucien?" the woman asked. "Of course," Lucien replied, unable to back down now. "I said I'd bring her, and I will. It's all arranged." After they left for lunch on the terrace, Michaela leaned against the wall, her heart pounding. What had she just agreed to? She knew it was a cruel joke to Lucien, but something inside her refused to let him see her shame. If he wanted to parade her around as some kind of spectacle, she would show him she couldn't be humiliated so easily. That evening, Michaela called her best friend, Jasmine. "He what?" Jasmine exclaimed when Michaela told her about the invitation. "I know it sounds crazy," Michaela said, "but I'm going to do it. I've saved enough for my shop, but I've never been anywhere. This might be my only chance to see Paris." "But he's just trying to embarrass you." "Then I won't give him the satisfaction," Michaela replied with determination. "I may be a maid, but that doesn't mean I don't have dignity." The following days passed in a blur. Lucien provided her with a plane ticket and travel details, but seemed to be avoiding her around the house. Michaela suspected Ed he was hoping she would back out. 2 weeks before the trip, Michaela visited a thrift shop after work. She was lucky enough to find a classic black evening gown that, with a few alterations, would fit her perfectly. Her neighbor, Mrs. Johnson, who used to work as a seamstress, helped her adjust the dress. "You look like royalty, dear," Mrs. Johnson said when Michaela tried on the finished gown. "That young man won't know what hit him." Michaela also spent her evenings watching videos about French etiquette and practicing basic French phrases. She was determined not to appear as clueless as Lucien expected her to be. The day of departure arrived quickly. Michaela packed her carefully altered thrift store finds and the few nice pieces of jewelry that had belonged to her mother. She stood at the front entrance of the Devereux mansion, waiting for Lucien. When he emerged from the house, he stopped short at the sight of her. Gone was the uniform he was accustomed to seeing her in. Instead, Michaela wore a simple but elegant traveling outfit. Dark jeans, a crisp white blouse, and a blazer she'd found on sale. Her usually pulled-back hair fell in soft curls around her face. "You're ready," Lucien said, sounding surprised. "I am," Michaela replied with a calm she didn't entirely feel. The drive to the airport was awkward. Lucien made a few phone calls, barely acknowledging her presence. When they arrived at the private terminal, Michaela couldn't help but feel overwhelmed. She had never flown before, let alone on a private jet. "Mr. Devereux, welcome," greeted the flight attendant. "And Mrs. Devereux?" "No," Lucien corrected quickly. "This is Ms. Dean. She works for my family." The attendant's smile didn't waver. "Of course. Welcome, Ms. Dean. Please make yourself comfortable." As the jet took off, Michaela gazed out to her window, watching America disappear beneath the clouds. Despite the circumstances, a small thrill ran through her. She was flying to Paris, the city she had only seen in movies and magazines. "I've arranged for you to have your own room at the chateau," Lucien said, breaking the silence. "The staff will help you with anything you need." "Thank you," Michaela replied simply. "The gala is tomorrow evening," he continued. "I've had a dress delivered to your room. I assume you'll need something suitable to wear." "Actually," Michaela said, "I've brought my own gown." Lucien raised an eyebrow but didn't comment further. After 8 hours in the air, the plane began its descent into Paris. Michaela couldn't help pressing her face against the window as the Eiffel Tower came into view, illuminated against the night sky. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Lucien glanced at her, a flicker of something, perhaps curiosity, rossing his features before he returned to his usual indifferent expression. A car was waiting for them at the airport. As they drove through the streets of Paris, Michaela took in every sight: the historic buildings, the River Seine, the cafes with people sitting outside despite the cool evening air. The chateau was located just outside the city, a magnificent estate with manicured gardens and a structure that looked like it belonged in a fairy tale. Michaela tried not to gape as they pulled up to the entrance. "Monsieur Devereux, welcome back," greeted an older gentleman in a formal uniform. "And mademoiselle?" "This is Miss Dean," Lucien said. "She'll be staying in the blue guest room." "Of course. Mademoiselle Dean, welcome to Chateau Bellevue. I am Henri, the head of household. If you need anything at all, please don't hesitate to ask." Unlike the dismissive tone many of the staff at the Devereux Mansion N used with her, Henri spoke to Michaela with genuine warmth and respect. "Thank you, Henri," she replied with a smile. A young woman named Sophie showed Michaela to her room. It was more luxurious than anything she had ever seen. A four-poster bed with silk sheets, antique furniture, and a balcony overlooking the gardens. "The bathroom is through there," Sophie explained. "Breakfast is served in the small dining room from 7 until 10. Would you like me to help you unpack?" "No, thank you," Michaela said. "I can manage." Once alone, Michaela sat on the edge of the bed, overwhelmed by the turn her life had taken. Just yesterday, she had been dusting the Devereux family portraits. Now she was in Paris, staying in a chateau that looked like it belonged to royalty. She unpacked her modest suitcase, carefully hanging up her gown for tomorrow's gala. Then she stepped out onto the balcony and breathed in the night air, allowing herself to enjoy this moment, regardless of the circumstances that had brought her here. The next morning, Michaela woke early. She dressed in a simple sundress and made her way downstairs, following the scent of fresh bread and coffee. In the dining room, she found Henri supervising the breakfast setup. "Good morning, Mademoiselle Dean," he greeted her. "You are an early riser." "Force of habit," she replied. "May I help with anything?" Henri looked surprised. "You are a guest here, mademoiselle." "I know, but I'm used to being on the other side of service." Understanding dawned on Henri's face. "Ah, I see. Well, if you wish to observe, you are welcome, but please enjoy your breakfast first." Michaela filled a plate with croissants, fruit, and cheese, then poured herself a cup of coffee. She sat at the table, savoring each bite of the delicious food. She was finishing her coffee when Lucien Amisas entered the dining room, already dressed in tailored pants and a casual button-down shirt. "You're up early," he remarked, looking genuinely surprised to see her. "I usually start work at 5, she reminded him. "Right." He poured himself coffee and sat across from her. "I have meetings in the city today. The gala starts at 8. I'll meet you in the main hall at 7:30. "I'll be ready," Michaela assured him. After breakfast, Michaela explored the gardens. They reminded her of why she wanted to open a flower shop. The beauty and tranquility of nature had always brought her peace. She found a secluded spot with a bench overlooking a small pond and sat down to read the paperback novel she'd brought with her. She was so absorbed in her book that she didn't notice Lucien watching her from a distance. He had returned early from his meetings and was struck by how at ease she seemed, not at all like someone who felt out of place. That evening, Michaela took extra care getting ready. She did her makeup simply but elegantly, arranged her hair in a sophisticated updo, and slipped into her thrift store gown. The black velvet material hugged her figure perfectly, thanks to Mrs. Johnson's alterations. With her mother's pearl necklace and matching earrings, she looked like she belonged in the pages of a fashion magazine. At exactly 7:30, Michaela descended the GRN staircase to the main hall where Lucien was waiting. He wore a classic black tuxedo that emphasized his tall, lean frame. When he saw her, Lucien's eyes widened. Whatever he had expected, it clearly wasn't this vision of elegance walking toward him. "You look," he began, then seemed unable to find the right words. "Thank you," Michaela said, saving him from having to complete the compliment she wasn't sure he meant to give. Henri, who was standing nearby, smiled approvingly. "Mademoiselle Dean, you look absolutely stunning." "Thank you, Henri," she replied warmly. The drive to the gala venue, a historic mansion in the heart of Paris, was silent. Michaela could feel Lucien stealing glances at her, but she kept her gaze on the city lights outside the window. As they arrived, Michaela took a deep breath. This was it, the moment Lucien had planned as her humiliation, but she was determined to hold her head high and show him that his cruel joke had failed. "Ready?" Lucien asked as the car door opened. Michaela met his gaze directly. ready. Together, they walked into the glittering ballroom, where the elite of European society awaited. The crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the crowd dressed in their finest. A string quartet played in the corner, while waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Michaela had never seen such opulence, but she maintained her composure, remembering all the etiquette videos she had watched. "Lucienne, darling," called a woman with perfectly coiffed silver hair. "Happy birthday." "Aunt Vivienne," Lucienne greeted her with a kiss on each cheek. "May I introduce Michaela Dean?" The older woman assessed Michaela with curious eyes. "Charmed, my dear. And how do you know our Lucienne?" Before Lucienne could answer, Michaela spoke. "I work for the Devereux family, ma'am." "Oh?" Vivienne looked intrigued rather than scandalized. "In what capacity?" "I'm a member of the household staff," Michaela said simply, without shame. "How refreshing," Vivienne replied with a genuine smile. "Most of the people here are either related to each other or trying to marry into money. You must have fascinating stories to tell." Lucienne looked stunned by his aunt's reaction. As the evening progressed, Michaela continued to surprise everyone, especially Lucienne. She accepted a glass of champagne but sipped it slowly. When offered caviar, she took a small taste and commented on its unique flavor. She made polite conversation with anyone who approached, never pretending to be something she wasn't. "Your friend is quite lovely," commented one of Lucien's business associates. "Where did you meet her?" "She works for my family," Lucien replied, watching as Michaela chatted with a violinist who was taking a break from performing. "Really? She carries herself like she was born into this world?" Lucien couldn't disagree. Throughout the night, he found his eyes drawn to Michaela again and again. She moved through the crowd with a natural grace that many of the socialites around them tried desperately to cultivate. When the dancing began, Lucien hesitated, then approached her. "Would you like to dance?" he asked, extending his hand. Michaela looked at him with surprise. This hadn't been part of his plan, she was sure. "Yes," she said, placing her hand in his. As they moved across the dance floor, Lucien held her at a respectful distance, but Michaela could feel his eyes studying her face. "This wasn't how it was supposed to go," he admitted quietly. "No," Michaela replied. "You were supposed to hate seeing me belong." The honesty of her words seemed to strike him like a physical blow. For perhaps the first time in his privileged Li-Fi, Lucien Devereux looked ashamed. "I've been cruel," he said. "Yes," Michaela agreed. "You have." The music ended, and Michaela stepped back from his embrace. Without another word, she walked away, leaving him standing alone on the dance floor. Later that night, Michaela stood on her balcony at the chateau, gazing at the stars above Paris. Despite Lucien's intentions, the evening had been magical. She had seen a world so different from her own, and she had aced it with dignity. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. When she opened it, Lucien stood there, his tie undone, looking uncertain. "May I speak with you?" he asked. Michaela hesitated, then nodded. For a moment. "I want to apologize," Lucien said, standing just inside her doorway. "What I planned, what I said about you, it was unforgivable." "Why did you do it?" Michaela asked. Lucien ran a hand through his hair. "Because I'm exactly what you think I am. An entitled, arrogant man who's never had to work for anything in his life." "At least you're honest about it," Michaela said. "I don't expect you to forgive me," Lucien continued, "but I wanted you to know that everyone at the gala tonight was genuinely impressed by you. Not because you were trying to be something you're not, but because you were simply yourself." Michaela considered his words. "Thank you for telling me that. Now, if you'll excuse me, it's been a long day." Lucien nodded and turned to leave. At the door, he paused. "We'll be staying in Paris for 3 more days before returning home. There's a car and driver at your disposal if you'd like to see the city." "I would like that," Michaela replied. After he left, Michaela returned to the balcony. The night had brought revelations she hadn't expected. Lucien Devereux had shown a glimpse of humanity she hadn't believed.
He possessed. As she looked out over the moonlit gardens, Michaela wondered what the coming days in Paris would bring. The next morning, Michaela woke to sunlight streaming through the curtains of her luxurious room at Chateau Bellevue. For a moment, she forgot where she was until the events of the previous night came flooding back: the gala, the dancing, and Lucien's unexpected apology. She got dressed in a simple outfit. She had packed jeans and a light sweater and made her way downstairs. The dining room was empty except for Henry, who was arranging fresh flowers on the table. "Good morning, Mademoiselle Dean," he greeted her warmly. "Did you sleep well?" "Very well, thank you," Michaela replied. "The room is beautiful." "Breakfast is ready whenever you are," Henry said. "And Monsieur Devereux asked me to inform you that a car is at your disposal today, as promised." "That's very kind," Michaela said, helping herself to a croissant and coffee. "Is Mr. Devereux joining for breakfast?" "He left early for a business meeting in the city," Henry explained. "He mentioned he would return this afternoon." Part of Michaela was relieved. After last night's conversation, she wasn't sure how to act around Lucien. The man who had invited her to Paris to humiliate her seemed very different from the one who had apologized at her door. After breakfast, Michaela decided to take Lucien up on his offer. "Henry, I'd like to see Paris today." "Is the driver available?" "Of course, mademoiselle. Pierre can take you wherever you wish to go. Do you have any particular places in mind?" Michaela smiled shyly. "Actually, I've always wanted to visit the flower markets and perhaps the Eiffel Tower if there's time." "A wonderful choice," Henry said with approval. "The flower markets of Paris are among the most beautiful in the world." 30 minutes later, Michaela was in the back of a sleek black car. Pierre, the driver, navigating the busy streets of Paris. "The flower market is first, mademoiselle?" Pierre asked. "Yes, please," Michaela replied, gazing out the window at the historic buildings and stylish Parisians going about their day. The flower market was even more spectacular than she had imagined. Stalls overflowed with blooms of every color and variety. The air was fragrant with the scent of roses, lily, and countless other flowers. Michaela wandered through the market, taking photos with her phone and stopping to admire particularly beautiful arrangements. "You have a good eye," commented an elderly vendor in heavily accented English as Michaela admired a display of orchids. "You work with flowers?" "Not yet," Michaela replied. "But I hope to open my own flower shop one day." The woman nodded approvingly. "You understand the soul of Flower-S. This is most important." Michaela spent over an hour at the market, talking with vendors and learning about varieties she had never seen before. One kind vendor even gave her a small bouquet of lavender as a gift. Afterward, Pierre drove her to the Eiffel Tower. Standing beneath the iconic structure, Michaela felt a sense of wonder. She had seen it in countless movies and photographs, but being there in person was entirely different. "Would you like to go up, mademoiselle?" Pierre asked. "Yes, I would," Michaela said decisively. From the observation deck, Paris spread out before her like a beautiful painting. Michaela could see the Seine winding through the city, the grand buildings, and the busy streets below. She took a deep breath, savoring the moment. Whatever Lucien's original intentions had been in bringing her here, she was grateful for this opportunity to see one of the world's most beautiful cities. After the Eiffel Tower, Pierre suggested lunch at a small cafe near the Seine. Michaela enjoyed a delicious meal of French onion soup and a fresh baguette while watching boats glide by on the river. As she was finishing her coffee, her phone buzzed with a text message from Lucien. "I hope you're enjoying Paris. Would you join me for dinner tonight? There's a restaurant near the chateau I'd like to show you. Michaela stared at the message, uncertain how to respond. Was this another part of his game? Or was he genuinely trying to make amends? After a moment's hesitation, she replied, "Thank you for the invitation. What time?" His response came quickly. 7 o'clock. I'll meet you in the main hall. Michaela spent the rest of the afternoon exploring more of Paris with Pierre as her guide. They visited Notre Dame Cathedral, walked along the Seine, and stopped at a small bookshop where Michaela purchased a book about Frenchy gardens as a souvenir. By the time they returned to the chateau, it was late afternoon. Michaela thanked Pierre for the wonderful day and went to her room to rest before dinner. At precisely 7 o'clock, she descended the stairs to the main hall. She had changed into a simple navy blue dress, another thrift store find that Mrs. Johnson had altered for her. Lucien was waiting, dressed in slacks and a light sweater that made him look more approachable than his us. Yule formal attire. You look nice, he said when she approached. Thank you, Michaela replied. So do you. An awkward silence fell between them until Lucien cleared his throat. The restaurant is just a short walk from here. It's a beautiful evening if you'd like to walk rather than take the car. I'd like that, Michaela agreed. They set off down a tree-lined path that led away from the chateau. The evening was indeed beautiful, the sky painted with the sea odors of sunset, a gentle breeze carrying the scent of flowers. Did you enjoy your day in Paris? Lucien asked as they walked. Very much, Michaela replied. The flower markets were incredible. You like flowers? Lucien seemed genuinely interested. I love them, Michaela admitted. I'm saving to open my own flower shop someday. I didn't know that, Lucien said softly. There's a lot you don't know about me, Michaela pointed out. Lucien nodded, accepting the gentle rebuke. I'd like to change that, if you'll let me. Before Michaela could respond, they arrived at the restaurant, a charming building with a terrace overlooking a small lake. Monsieur Devereux, welcome, greeted the maître d', leading them to a table on the terrace. The setting was romantic candles on the tables, fairy lights strung overhead, and the last light of day reflecting on the water. Michaela couldn't help but wonder if Lucien had chosen it deliberately. Once they were seated and had ordered, Lucien seemed to struggle with what to say. I've been thinking about what you said last night, he finally began, about me hating to see you belong. Michaela waited, giving him space to continue. You were right, Lucien admitted. I brought you here expecting you to fail to prove that someone like you couldn't fit into my world. But you belonged more than many people who were born into it. High, was that so important to you? Michaela asked. Why did you need me to fail? Lucien looked down at his hands. Because it's easier to believe that people are where they are because they deserve to be. That I'm wealthy and privileged because I'm somehow better. Seeing you last night, so graceful, so dignified, it made me question everything I've been taught about my place in the world. And what have you been taught? Michaela asked. That people like me are meant to lead, to control, to have power, Lucien replied. My father drummed that into me from the time I was a child. Devereux men are exceptional, he would say. That's why we have what we have. Their conversation paused as the waiter brought their appetizers, a delicate mushroom soup for Michaela and escargot for Lucien. And your mother? Michaela asked after the waiter left. What did she teach you? A shadow crossed Lucien's face. My mother left tea when I was 8. She couldn't stand my father's coldness anymore. She tried to take me with her, but my father's lawyers made sure that didn't happen. Michaela's heart softened at this glimpse of the wounded boy beneath Lucien's arrogant exterior. I'm sorry, don't be, Lucien said, his voice hardening. It was a long time ago. Some wounds don't heal with time, Michaela said gently. They need care and attention. Lucien looked at her with surprise, as if he hadn't expected such insight. What about your family? He asked, clearly wanting to change the subject. My parents died in a car accident 5 years ago, Michaela said. It's just me and my younger brother now. He's studying engineering at community college. Is that why you work as a maid? Lucien asked. To support him? Michaela nodded. Partly, and to save for my flower shop. The pay is good, and the live-in arrangement means I don't have housing expenses. You've thought it all through, Lucien said, a note of admiration in his voice. I have to, Michaela replied simply. I don't have the luxury of not planning. Their main courses arrived coq au vin for Michaela and steak for Lucien. They ate in companionable silence for a few minutes, the awkwardness between them beginning to fade. Tell me about your brother, Lucien said eventually. Michaela's face lit up. Marcus is brilliant. He's always been good with numbers and building things. Even as a kid, he could fix anything that broke around the house. He's going to be an amazing engineer someday. You're proud of him, Lucien observed. Very, Michaela agreed. He works so hard, taking classes and working part-time at the campus library. I help with his tuition, but he earns his own spending money. My father would say that builds character, Lucien remarked. Does it? Michaela asked. Did having everything handed to you build character? Instead of taking offense, Lucien laughed, a genuine warm sound that transformed his usually stern face. Touché, I probably have less character than your brother. It's never too late to develop some, Michaela suggested with a small smile. As the evening continued, Michaela found herself enjoying Lucien's company more than she would have thought possible. Beneath his arrogant exterior was a man with a sharp mind and, surprisingly, a sense of humor. He told her stories about growing up in the Devereux mansion, some of which made her laugh despite herself. By the time dessert arrived, a delicate chocolate soufflé that they shared, Michaela felt as if she were getting to know the real Lucien Devereux, not just the spoiled heir she had served for the past year. What will you do when you return to New York? Lucien asked as they lingered over coffee. The same as before, Michaela replied. Work, save, take care of my responsibilities. And your flower shop? 8 more months of saving, if all goes well, Michaela said. I've already found the perfect location, a small storefront on Maple Street. The owner is holding it for me until I have enough for the down payment. What will you call it? Lucien asked. Dean's Blooms, Michaela said with a smile. Simple, but it has a nice ring to it. It does, Lucien agreed. I can picture it, a charming little shop filled with flowers, and you in the middle of it all, arranging bouquets. The image he painted was so close to her own dream that Michaela felt a flutter in her chest. That's exactly how I imagine it. As they walked back to the chateau under a sky full of stars, Lucien offered Michaela his arm. After a moment's hesitation, she took it. Thank you for dinner, she said. It was lovely. Thank you for giving me a second chance, Lucien replied. I know I didn't deserve it after what I planned. When they reached the chateau, Lucien walked Michaela to her room. I have another business meeting tomorrow morning, he said. But would you like to have dinner in the city tomorrow night? There's a place near the Louvre that I think you'd enjoy. Michaela hesitated. She was enjoying Lucien's company more than she should, but she couldn't forget that in a few days they would return to New York, where she would go back to being his family's maid. I'd like that, she said finally. But Lucien, when we go back to New York, let's not think about that yet. Lucien interrupted gently. We still have 2 more days in Paris. Michaela nodded. Good night, Lucien. Good night, Michaela, he replied, his eyes lingering on her face before he turned and walked away. Inside her room, Michaela sat on the edge of the bed, her mind whirling. What was happening between her and Lucien? Was this just guilt on his part, or something more? She fell asleep thinking of the way his eyes had softened when she talked about her dreams and the sound of his genuine laughter over dinner. The next day, Michaela spent the morning exploring the chateau's extensive gardens. The head gardener, an elderly man named Zhang, was delighted to show her around when he realized her interest in flowers was genuine. This greenhouse has been here for over 100 years, Zhang explained as he led her into a beautiful glass structure filled with exotic plants. The original Madame Devereux was passionate about botany and had it built to house specimens from around the world. Michaela moved through the greenhouse in awe, touching the leaves of plants she had only seen in books. It's magnificent. It is, agreed a voice behind them. Michaela turned to find Lucien standing in the doorway, watching her with a smile. Monsieur Devereux, Jean greeted him. I was just showing Mademoiselle Dean your great-grandmother's collection. I'm glad, Lucien said. She would have approved of someone who appreciates it properly. My meeting finished early, so I thought I'd see if you were free for lunch, Michaela. I'd like that, Michaela replied. Thank you for the tour, Jean. It was wonderful. Any time, mademoiselle, the gardener replied with a bow. Lucien led Michaela to a small pavilion in the garden where a table had been set for lunch. I hope you don't mind eating here, he said. It's one of my favorite spots on the estate. It's beautiful, Michaela assured him, taking in the view of the lake and the flower beds surrounding the pavilion. As they ate the light meal prepared by the chateau's chef, Lucien seemed more relaxed than Michaela had ever seen him. I've been thinking about what you said last night, he said suddenly, about building character. Oh? Michaela raised an eyebrow. You're right, Lucien admitted. I've never had to work for anything in my life. Everything has been handed to me, my position in the company, my wealth, even my friends. It's not too late to change that, Michaela pointed out. No, it's not, Lucien agreed. That's why I've decided to step back from some of my family duties. I want to earn my place, not just inherit it. Michaela looked at him with surprise. That's a big decision. It is, Lucien nodded. But it's the right one. I've been thinking about it for a while, but meeting you, seeing how hard you work for your dreams, it made me realize I've been coasting through life. What will you do instead? Michaela asked. I'm not sure yet, Lucien admitted. But I want it to be something meaningful, something that makes a difference. After lunch, they walked around the lake, talking about their childhoods, their dreams, and their fears. Michaela found herself opening up to Lucien in a way she hadn't with anyone in a long time. She told him about the pain of losing her parents, the responsibility of caring for her brother, and the moments of doubt when her dream of owning a flower shop seemed impossibly far away. Lucien listened with genuine interest, asking questions and offering comfort when she spoke of difficult times. "You're an extraordinary woman, Michaela Dean," he said as they completed their circuit of the lake. "I wish I had seen that sooner." Michaela felt her cheeks warm at his words. "I'm just doing what I need to do." "No," Lucien shook his head. "Many people would have given up on their dreams, especially after losing their parents. But you kept going. You're not just taking care of yourself, you're supporting your brother and planning for your future. That takes courage and determination." The sincerity in his voice made Michaela's heart beat faster. This was a side of Lucien she had never imagined existed: thoughtful, kind, and surprisingly insightful. That evening, as promised, Lucien took Michaela to dinner at a restaurant near the Louvre. Afterward, they walked along the Seine, stopping to listen to a street musician playing the violin. When Lucien's hand found hers in the darkness, Michaela didn't pull away. For just this moment, she allowed herself to forget the reality waiting for them back in New York. Their final day in Paris was spent exploring the city together. They visited the Louvre, where Lucien surprised Michaela with his knowledge of art history. They had lunch at a tiny cafe tucked away on a side street, where the chef greeted Lucien like an old friend. They strolled through the Luxembourg Gardens, talking and laughing as if they had known each other for years rather than days. As the sun began to set on their last evening in Paris, Lucien suggested they return to the Eiffel Tower. "It's even more beautiful at night," he explained as they rode the elevator to the observation deck. He was right. Paris spread out before them, a sea of twinkling lights. The Seine reflected the city's glow, and landmarks like Notre Dame and the Arc de Triomphe were illuminated against the night sky. "I never want to forget this view," Michaela said softly. "Neither do I," Lucien replied, but when she turned to look at him, he wasn't looking at the city, he was looking at her. The intensity in his eyes made Michaela's breath catch. Slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted to, Lucien leaned
down and kissed her. His lips were gentle against hers, the kiss a question more than a demand. Michaela knew she should stop this. Tomorrow they would return to New York, where she would be the maid and he would be the employer. But in this moment, high above Paris with the city lights surrounding them, she couldn't bring herself to pull away. When the kiss ended, Lucien rested his forehead against hers. "I never expected to feel this way about you." "Lucien," Michaela began, reality intruding on the moment. "When we go back—" "I know," he interrupted. "Things will be complicated, but what I feel for you is real, Michaela. This isn't guilt or pity or some passing fancy. I've never met anyone like you." "We come from different worlds," Michaela reminded him. "Worlds can change," Lucien replied. "People can change. I have." Michaela wanted to believe him. The man standing before her now was so different from the arrogant heir who had invited her to Paris as a cruel joke. But could this change last once they returned to the reality of their lives in New York? As if reading her thoughts, Lucien took her hands in his. "I know you have doubts. You have every reason to, but give me a chance to prove that what's happening between us is real, that it can survive outside of Paris." Michaela looked into his eyes, searching for any sign of insincerity. All she saw was hope and something else, something that looked remarkably like love. "Okay," she said finally. "We'll see what happens when we get back." Lucien's smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. He pulled her into his arms, holding her close as they looked out over the city of lights. Later that night, as Michaela packed her suitcase for their return journey the next day, she found herself both excited and afraid. The past few days had been like a dream, a beautiful interlude outside of real life. Tomorrow, that dream would end, and reality would return. Would Lucien still look at her the same way when she was wearing her maid's uniform again? Would his family accept a relationship between them, if that was indeed where this was heading? And most importantly, could she trust that his feelings wouldn't change once they were back in New York? As she folded her gown from the gala, the event that had started this unexpected journey, Michaela realized that for the first time in years, she was taking a leap of faith. She had always been careful, always planned every step. But there was no plan for falling in love with Lucien Devereux, because that was what was happening, she admitted to herself. Against all odds, despite their different backgrounds and his initial cruelty, she was falling in love with him. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. When she opened it, Lucien stood there holding a small box. "I have something for you," he said, stepping into the room. "A souvenir of our time in Paris." He handed her the box. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a small charm in the shape of the Eiffel Tower. "It's beautiful," Michaela said, touching the charm gently. "May I?" Lucien asked, taking the bracelet from the box. Michaela nodded, extending her wrist. Lucien fastened the bracelet, his fingers lingering on her SKN. "Whenever you look at it," he said, "remember that Paris is where I began to see the real you, and where I began to become a better version of myself." "I'll remember," Michaela promised. Lucien leaned down and kissed her softly. "Good night, Michaela. Sweet dreams." "Good night, Lucien," she replied. After he left, Michaela stood by the window, looking out at the moonlit gardens of Chateau Bellevue. Tomorrow they would leave this enchanted place and return to reality. What that reality would look like she couldn't say. But for the first time in a long time, Michaela was allowing herself to hope for more than she had planned. As she drifted off to sleep, the silver bracelet on her wrist caught the moonlight, the Eiffel Tower charm glinting like a promise of things to come. The private jet touched down in New York on a rainy afternoon. As Michaela gazed out the window at the familiar skyline, Paris already felt like a distant dream. She touched the silver bracelet on her wrist, drawing comfort from the small Eiffel Tower charm. "Are you okay?" Lucien asked, noticing her pensive expression. "Just thinking about how different everything will be now," Michaela replied honestly. Lucien reached across and took her hand. "Some things will change, yes, but what I feel for you won't." Michaela wanted to believe him, but doubt crept in as the plane taxied to a stop. In Paris, they had been in a bubble, away from his family, away from the reality of their different positions in life. How would Lucien act once they were back in the Devereux mansion, where she was just the maid? A car was waiting to take them from the airport. As they drove through the city, Michaela felt her anxiety growing. What would happen when they arrived at the mansion? Would she be expected to immediately resume her duties? Would Lucien tell his family about their relationship, or was that too much to hope for? "I can hear you thinking," Lucien said, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. "Whatever you're worried about, we'll figure it out together." When they arrived at the Devereux mansion, Michaela was surprised to see Lucien's father, Richard Devereux, waiting at the entrance. Tall and imposing with silver hair and cold blue eyes so similar to Lucien's, Richard rarely acknowledged the staff. "Welcome home, son," Richard said as they got out of the car. His gaze shifted to Michaela, a flicker of confusion crossing his face. "And Miss Dean, correct?" "I trust Paris was educational." The way he said it made Michaela's skin crawl. Did he know about Lucien's original intentions in bringing her? "It was, father," Lucien replied, his voice taking on a formality Michaela hadn't heard in days. "Paris is always a pleasure." "Well, I'm sure Miss Dean has duties to attend to," Richard said dismissively, "and we have matters to discuss. The Thompson deal is nearing completion." Michaela felt Lucien stiffen beside her. This was the moment of truth. Would he acknowledge what had happened between them, or would he slip back into his role as the heir to the Devereux fortune? "Actually, father," Lucien said firmly, "Michaela has had a long journey. She'll be taking the rest of the day off to rest." Richard's eyebrows shot up. Since when do you concern yourself with the staff's schedule? Since now, Lucien replied, his tone leaving no room for argument. And there's something else we need to discuss. But it can wait until tomorrow. I'm tired as well. Richard looked from his son to Michaela, his expression unreadable. Very well, we'll talk in the morning. As Richard turned and walked back into the house, Michaela let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Thank you, she said quietly. Don't thank me, Lucien replied. I should have said more, but it's okay, Michaela assured him. This is all new. We need time to figure things out. Lucien nodded, relief evident in his eyes. Get some rest. I'll come find you later. Michaela picked up her small suitcase and headed to her quarters in the staff wing of the mansion. The room felt smaller and plainer than she remembered after the luxury of Chateau Bellevue. She unpacked quickly, hanging up her few nice clothes and placing the book about French gardens on her nightstand. Just as she was about to lie down for a nap, there was a knock at her door. It was Mrs. Winters, the housekeeper, a stern woman in her 60s who ran the household staff with military precision. Michaela, Mrs. Winters said, her thin lips pressed into a disapproving line. I understand you've been gallivanting in Paris with Mr. Devereux. The way she said it made it sound scandalous, which, Michaela supposed, it was from the staff's perspective. Mr. Devereux invited me to accompany him to his birthday celebration, Michaela replied carefully. Well, whatever happened in Paris, you're back now, Mrs. Winters said. I expect you to resume your regular duties tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. sharp. Of course, Michaela agreed. Thank you for the day off to rest. Mrs. Winters sniffed. That was Mr. Devereux's decision, not mine. I would have had you back to work immediately. After the housekeeper left, Michaela sat on her bed, reality crashing down around her. No matter what had happened in Paris, here she was still the maid. And from Mrs. Winters' attitude, any relationship with Lucien would be viewed with suspicion and disapproval by the staff as well as the family. She was exhausted from the journey and emotional upheaval of the past few days. Despite her were eyes, sleep came quickly. When Michaela woke, the room was dark. She checked her phone and was surprised to see it was nearly 8 in the evening. She had slept for hours. There was also a text message from Lucien. Meet me in the greenhouse when you wake up, no rush. The Devereux mansion had a small greenhouse attached to the east wing. It was nothing like the magnificent structure at Chateau Bellevue, and in the year she had worked there, Michaela had never seen anyone use it. She changed into fresh clothes and made her way through the house, feeling strange to be walking the halls as something other than a maid. The greenhouse was lit with strings of small white lights, creating a magical atmosphere among the neglected plants. Lucien was waiting, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, looking more relaxed than she would have expected after their encounter with his father. You found it, he said with a smile. It wasn't hard, Michaela replied, though I've never been in here before. No one comes here anymore, Lucien explained. It was my mother's project before she left. After that, my father wanted it closed up, but I wouldn't let him. I've paid a gardener to keep the plants alive, but that's about all that happens here now. Michaela looked around with new interest. Your mother liked plants? She loved them, Lucien said, a softness in his voice. She would have loved the greenhouse at Chateau Bellevue, and she would have loved you. The simple statement made Michaela's heart swell. Tell me about her. Lucien led her to a small bench surrounded by ferns. Her name is Elise. She is nothing like my father. Warm, creative, always laughing. She grew up in a middle-class family in Boston, met my father at a charity event. He was captivated by her and they married quickly. What happened? Michaela scared gently. My father happened, Lucien said with a touch of bitterness. He wanted to mold her into the perfect society wife, but my mother refused to change. They fought constantly. When I was 8, she decided she couldn't take it anymore. She wanted to take me with her, but my father threatened to use his influence to destroy her family's business if she tried. That's terrible, Michaela said, reaching for his hand. It was, Lucien agreed. For years, I blamed her for leaving me behind. It wasn't until I was older that I understood she had no choice. My father made sure I had limited contact with her, supervised visits twice a year, monitored phone calls. Eventually, she remarried and moved to California. I see her more often now, but we're not as close as we could have been. I'm sorry, Michaela said, squeezing his hand. Watching you these past few days, Lucian continued, seeing your strength, your kindness, your refusal to be intimidated by my world, it reminded me of her. She would have stood up to my father the way you stood up to me. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, surrounded by the gentle scent of earth and growing things. I had a conversation with my father after you went to rest, Lucien said finally. I told him about us. Michaela's heart skipped a beat. What did you say exactly? I told him that my feelings for you are serious, Lucien replied, that what started as something regrettable has become something real and important to me. And how did he take it? Michaela asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. About as well as you'd expect, Lucien said with a wry smile. He thinks it's a phase that I'm rebelling or trying to get back at him for something. He suggested I get it out of my system and then focus on suitable relationships. The words stung, even though they weren't surprising. And what did you say to that? I told him he was wrong, Lucien said simply, that my feelings for you are genuine and that he would need to accept that if he wants me to remain part of this family. Michaela's eyes widened. You threatened to cut ties with your family. For me? For us, Lucien corrected. And yes, my father's approval stopped being important to me a long time ago, Michaela. What I feel for you, that's what matters now. Lucien, Michaela began, her practical nature asserting itself. This won't be easy. Your father, your friends, society. They'll all have opinions about us. And I have responsibilities, my brother's education, my plans for the flower shop. I know, Lucien said. I'm not asking you to give up your dreams or your responsibilities. I want to support them, support you. And as for what other people think, he shrugged. Let them talk. It won't see. Hang's how I feel. His confidence was both reassuring and concerning. Had he really thought through all the complications of a relationship between them? There's something else, Lucien continued, his expression growing serious. I've been thinking about what you said in Paris, about me never having to work for anything in my life. You were right. Everything has been handed to me, and I've never appreciated its value. What are you saying? Michaela asked. I'm stepping back from my role in the family business, Lucien replied. Not completely, not yet, but I'm reducing my involvement. I want to find something meaningful to do, something that makes a difference. Your father can't be happy about that either, Michaela observed. He's not, Lucien confirmed, but it's my life, and for the first time, I'm making choices based on what I want, not what's expected of me. He took both her hands in his. I can't promise it will be easy, Michaela, but I can promise that what I feel for you is real, and that I'm willing to fight for us if you are. Michaela looked into his eyes, seeing the sincerity there. The Lucien before her now was so different from the arrogant man who had invited her to Paris as a cruel joke. She could see glimpses of the wounded boy who had lost his mother, the man struggling to break free from his father's expectations, and, most importantly, the person who had seen her for who she truly was and valued her for it. I'm willing to try, she said finally, but Lucien, I can't continue working here as a maid if we're going to be together. It would be too complicated, too awkward. I understand, Lucien said quickly. You don't have to. In fact, he hesitated. I had another idea, but I don't want you to think I'm trying to buy your affection or solve everything with money. What is it? Michaela asked. The storefront you mentioned, on Maple Street. What if we looked into securing it now, rather than waiting 8 more months? You could start your flower shop sooner. Michaela pulled back slightly. Lucien, I can't let you pay for my shop. That's not how I want to start my business. I'm not suggesting I pay for it, Lucien clarified. Think of it as an investment. I believe in you and your dream. We could be partners. You would run the shop, make all the decisions, and eventually buy out my share when you're able to. The offer was tempting. Michaela had dreamed of opening her shop for so long, and the thought of doing it now, rather than waiting, was exciting. But she was wary of becoming financially dependent on Lucien, especially when their relationship was still so new. I need to think about it, she said honestly. It's a generous offer, but you're worried about mixing business and… Whatever this is between us, Lucien finished for her. I understand. Take all the time you need. The offer stands, with no pressure and no strings attached. Michaela nodded, grateful for his understanding. Thank you. They spent the rest of the evening in the greenhouse, talking about their childhoods, their hopes for the future, and the challenges they would face. When it grew late, Lucienne walked Michaela back to her room. What happens tomorrow? She asked as they stood outside her door. Whatever we want to happen, Lucienne replied. But practically speaking, if you're uncomfortable continuing to work here, I understand. Take some time to think about what you want to do next. Your job will be here if you want it, but you're under no obligation. Thank you, Michaela said. I'll let you know my decision in the morning. Lucienne leaned down and kissed her softly. Good night, Michaela. Good night, Lucienne. Inside her room, Michaela sat on her bed, her mind racing. So much had changed in such a short time. Just a week ago, she had been invisible to Lucien, just another member of the household staff. Now he was talking about investing in her dream, about standing up to his father for her, about a future together. It was overwhelming and exciting and terrifying all at once. She called her brother Marcus, needing to hear. A familiar voice. Michaela, he answered cheerfully. How is Paris? Did you see the Eiffel Tower? Did that rich guy treat you okay? Michaela smiled at his enthusiasm. Paris was beautiful. Yes, I saw the Eiffel Tower. And Lucien, he started out being terrible, but he changed. Or maybe I just got to see who he really is beneath all the arrogance. Wait, Marcus said, his tone shifting to concern. Are you saying you like this guy now? The one who invited you as some kind of joke? It's complicated, Michaela admitted. But yes, I have feelings for him, and he has feelings for me too. Sis, Marcus said slowly, are you sure about this? I mean, this is the guy who wanted to humiliate you in front of his rich friends, and he's your boss. I know how it sounds, Michaela sighed, but people can change, Marcus. He's not who I thought he was. If you say so, Marcus replied, clearly unconvinced. Just be careful, okay? I don't want to see you get hurt. I will be, Michaela promised. How are your classes going? They talked about Marcus's studies for a while, and Michaela felt herself relaxing. No matter what happened with Lucien, she still had her brother, still had her dreams. She wouldn't lose sight of who she was or what mattered to her. After saying goodnight to Marcus, Michaela made a decision. She would give notice tomorrow. Whether or not she accepted Lucien's offer to invest in her flower shop, she couldn't continue working as a maid in his family's home if they were going to explore a relationship. She needed to stand on her own 2 feet to meet him as an equal. The next morning, Michaela woke early out of habit. She dressed in her uniform one last time and went to find Mrs. Winters to give her notice. The housekeeper was in the kitchen, reviewing the day's menu with the cook. Mrs. Winters, may I speak with you privately? Michaela asked. The older woman nodded curtly and led her to the small office off the kitchen where she managed the household staff. What is it, Michaela? Mrs. Winters asked once they were seated. I'm giving my 2 weeks' notice, Michaela said firmly. I appreciate the opportunity to work here, but it's time for me to move on. Mrs. Winters' eyes narrowed. This wouldn't have anything to do with your trip to Paris with Mr. de Vere UX, would it? Michaela met her gaze steadily. My reasons are personal, Mrs. Winters. I see, the housekeeper said, her disapproval evident. Well, I can't say I'm surprised. The staff has been gossiping about nothing else since you left for Paris together. I'm sorry if my decision causes any inconvenience, Michaela said, refusing to be baited into discussing her relationship with Lucien. 2 weeks' notice is standard, Mrs. Winters replied stiffly. Though given the unusual circumstances, it might be best if you left sooner. I'll speak to Mr. Devereux, the elder Mr. Devereux, about a severance package. Thank you, Michaela said, standing to leave. I'll continue my duties until a replacement is found or until my notice period is complete, whichever comes first. As she turned to go, Mrs. Winters called after her. Michaela, she paused, looking back at the housekeeper. Be careful, Mrs. Winters said, her expression softening slightly. Men like the Devereux, they live in a different world. What seems real to you might be just a passing fancy to him. The warning was surprisingly kind, coming from the usually stern housekeeper. I'll keep that in mind, Michaela replied. Thank you for your concern. As she left the office, Michaela nearly collided with Richard Devereux in the hallway. Ms. Dean, he said coldly, just the person I was looking for. Michaela's heart sank. This couldn't be good. Mr. Devereux, how can I help you? Let's speak privately, Richard said, gesturing to the library across the hall. Michaela followed him, her anxiety growing with each step. Once inside the wood-paneled room, Richard closed the door and turned to face her. I'll be direct, Ms. Dean, he began. My son seems to have developed an infatuation with you during your time in Paris. While I'm sure you're a perfectly adequate maid, you must understand that any romantic relationship between you and Lucien is inappropriate and impossible. Michaela felt her cheeks burn with anger and humiliation. With all due respect, Mr. Devereux, I believe that's for Lucien and me to decide. Richard's eyebrows shot up at her response. You misunderstand me. This is not a negotiation. The Devereux family has a certain position in society. Lucien has responsibilities, expectations. He will not, throw all that away for a dalliance with the help. The contempt in his voice made Michaela flinch, but she stood her ground. I've already given my notice to Mrs. Winters. I won't be working here much longer. Good, Richard said. That's a start, but it's not enough. I want you to end whatever is happening between you and my son. And if I don't, Michaela asked, though she already suspected the answer. Then I'll be forced to take action, Richard replied. I understand you have a brother in college. Marcus, is it? At Metro Community College. I imagine his education is quite expensive. It would be unfortunate if his scholarship were to be re-evaluated. Michaela felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. Are you threatening my brother? I'm simply pointing out that actions have consequences, Richard said smoothly. The Devereux family has considerable influence. We can make things very difficult for you and those you care about. Lucien won't stand for this, Michaela said, her voice shaking with anger. Lucien doesn't need to know, Richard countered. Tell him you've reconsidered, that you don't share his feelings. He'll be hurt initially, but he'll move on. It's for the best, Miss Dean. Surely you can see that. Before Michaela could respond, the library door opened. Lucien stood there, his face a mask of fury. I thought I might find you here, father, he said, his voice dangerously calm. Threatening Michaela and her family. Even for you, that's low. Richard's expression didn't change. This doesn't concern you, Lucien. Doesn't concern me, Lucien repeated incredulously. You're threatening the woman I care about and her brother's education. How does that not concern me? I'm doing what's necessary to protect this family's interests, Richard insisted. You're not thinking clearly. This infatuation will pass, and you'll thank me for preventing you from making a terrible mistake. The only mistake would be letting you dictate my life any longer, Lucien said. He turned to Michaela. I'm sorry you had to experience this. Are you okay? Michaela nodded, though she was far from okay. The threat to Marcus's education had shaken her deeply. Let's go, Lucien said, extending his hand to her. Michaela hesitated, looking from Lucien T., his father. Richard's threat hung in the air between them. He can't hurt Marcus, Lucien said, seeming to read her thoughts. I promise you that. Whatever influence he thinks he has, I can counter it. Michaela took Lucien's hand, drawing strength from his confidence. This isn't over, Richard called after them as they left the library. Yes, it is, Lucien replied without looking back. He led Michaela to the greenhouse, the one place in the mansion where they could have privacy. Once inside, he pulled her into his arms. I'm so sorry, he said, holding her close. I should have known he would try something like this. He threatened Marcus's education, Michaela said, her voice muffled against his chest. Can he really do that? No, Lucien assured her. My father likes to think his influence is unlimited, but it's not, and I have resources of my own. Marcus's education is safe, I promise you. Michaela pulled back to look at him. I gave my notice to Mrs. Winters this morning, before your father found me. You did? Lucien seemed surprised. Why? Because if we're going to try to have a relationship, I can't be your family's employee, Michaela explained. It wouldn't be right. I need to stand on my own, to meet you as an equal. A slow smile spread across Lucian's face. You never cease to amaze me, Michaela Dean. Your strength, your integrity. I don't deserve you. Maybe not, Michaela agreed with a small smile. But you're learning. What will you do now? Lucien asked. Have you thought about my offer to invest in your flower shop? I have, Michaela said, and while I appreciate it, I need to do this on my own. I have savings and I've been in touch with the owner of the storefront on Maple Street. He's willing to work with me on a payment plan for the down payment. Lucien nodded, though she could see a flicker of disappointment in his eyes. I understand, and I respect your decision. Just know that the offer stands if you ever change your mind. Thank you, Michaela said. But this is something I need to accomplish myself. Then I'll support you however I can, Lucien promised, without stepping on your independence. What about your father? Michaela asked, the confrontation in the library still fresh in her mind. I meant what I said, Lucien replied firmly. His control over my life ends now. I've already started the process of moving my personal finances out of the family accounts. I have an apartment in the city that's mine, not the family's. We can stay there while you look for a place of your own, if you'd like. You've thought of everything, Michaela said, touched by his thoroughness. I'm trying to, Lucien admitted. I want this us to work, Michaela, whatever it takes. The determination in his voice was reassuring. Maybe, just maybe, they could overcome the obstacles in their path. Over the next week, Michaela continued working at the mansion, though Mrs. Winters had relieved her of any duties that would bring her into contact with the family. She spent her free time looking for an affordable apartment and making plans for her flower shop. Lucien, true to his word, began the process of distancing himself from his father's control. He moved out of the mansion and into his city apartment. He reduced his role in the family business, focusing only on projects he felt passionate about. And every evening, he took Michaela to dinner, to the theater, or simply for walks in the park, getting to know her better away from the shadow of the Devereux mansion. By the end of her first week of notice, Michaela had found a small but charming apartment not far from the storefront she hoped to rent for her showpea. The rent was manageable with her savings, and the location was perfect. It's lovely, Lucien said when she showed him the apartment. It suits you. I think so too, Michaela agreed. And I have news about the shop. The owner agreed to my payment plan for the down payment. I can sign the lease next week. That's wonderful, Lucien exclaimed, genuinely happy for her. We should celebrate. I'd like that, Michaela said, but something simple, please. No fancy restaurants or expensive champagne. That's not who I am. I know, Lucien replied with a smile. How about a picnic in the park? I make a mean turkey sandwich. Michaela laughed. You? Make a sandwich. I'll believe it when I see it. Challenge accepted, Lucien declared. The next day was Michaela's last at the Devereux mansion. She had packed her few belongings and said goodbye to the staff members she had become friendly with. Mrs. Winters, to her surprise, wished her well. You're a good worker, Michaela, the housekeeper said, and a good person. I hope things work out for you, truly. Thank you, Mrs. Winters, Michaela replied, touched by the unexpected kindness. As she was leaving, Richard Devereux appeared in the entrance hall. Michaela tensed, preparing for another confrontation, but he merely nodded coldly and continued on his way. It seemed he had realized that his threats would not work, at least for now. Lucien was waiting outside in his car to take her to her new apartment. As they drove away from the mansion, Michaela felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she was facing them on her own terms. How does it feel? Lucien asked, glancing at her. To be free of the Devereux household? Strange, Michaela admitted. But good, like I'm starting a new chapter. We both are, Lucien said, reaching for her hand. The following week was a whirlwind of activity. Michaela signed the lease for her shop, began the process of obtaining the necessary permits, and moved into her new apartment. Lucien was there every step of the way, offering support without taking over. On the day she got the keys to her shop, Lucian insisted on being there. "I want to see your face when you unlock the door for the first time," he explained. The storefront on Maple Street was small, but perf CT for Michaela's vision. Large windows let in plenty of natural light, ideal for displaying flowers. The back room was spacious enough for arranging bouquets and storing supplies. As Michaela turned the key in the lock and pushed open the door, a sense of accomplishment washed over her. This was hers, the dream she had been working toward for so long. "What do you think?" she asked Lucian as they stepped inside. "I think it's perfect," he replied. "And I think you're going to be amazing at this." Michaela walked to the center of the empty shop, turning slowly to take it all in. "I can see it already. Displays of fresh flowers here, potted plants along that wall, a counter for the register over there." "And what will you call it?" Lucian asked. "Still thinking of Dean's Blooms?" "Actually," Michaela said with a smile, "I was thinking of Michaela's garden. What do you think?" "I love it," Lucian said. "It's personal, just like your vision for this place." As they stood in the empty shop, imagining its future, Michaela felt a surge of gratitude for how far she had come. From a live-in maid saving every penny to a small business owner about to open her own shop. And along the way, she had found someone who saw her for who she truly was and valued her for it. "I have something for you," Lucian said, reaching into his pocket. A shop-warming present. He handed her a small box. Inside was a key, not to the shop, which she already held, but something else. "What's this for?" Michaela asked. "The greenhouse at the mansion," Lucian explained. "I've been working on restoring it, fixing the irrigation system, bringing in new plants. I thought you might like to use it until your shop is up and running. It's a quiet place to experiment with arrangements, and there are some beautiful specimens there that might inspire you." "Be at your father doesn't go near it," Lucian assured her. "And legally, it's part of my inheritance from my mother. He can't keep you out if I say you're welcome." Michaela was touched by the gesture. "Thank you. It's perfect." Over the next few weeks, Michaela divided her time between setting up her shop and working in the greenhouse at the Devereux mansion. She ordered display cases, coolers for fresh flowers, and all the supplies she would need. She developed relationships with local flower growers and wholesale suppliers, and slowly, Michaela's garden began to take shape. Lucian, meanwhile, had surprised her by developing a genuine interest in plants. He spent hours in the greenhouse with her, learning about different species and helping her experiment with arrangements. "I never knew how calming this could be," he admitted one evening as they worked side by side. "No wonder my mother loved it so much." "It's therapeutic," Michaela agreed. "Working with living things, helping them grow, it brings a special kind of joy." As they left the greenhouse that night, Lucian paused, turning to face Michaela in the moonlight. "I've been thinking," he began, uncharacteristically hesitant. "That sounds dangerous," Michaela teased, trying to lighten his suddenly serious mood. Lucian smiled. "Maybe it is, but I can't help it. Being with you these past weeks, seeing your strength and determination, watching you build your dream, it's made me realize something." "What's that?" Michaela asked. "That I want to be part of your life, not just now, but for the future too," Lucian replied. "I'm falling in love with you, Michaela Dean. Actually, I think I already have." The words hung in the air between them. Michaela's heart raced. She had been feeling the same way, but hearing him say it made it real in a new and slightly terrifying way. "You don't have to say it back," Lucian continued quickly. "I know this is all still new and we have a lot to figure out. I just wanted you to know how I feel." Michaela stepped closer to him, reaching up to touch his face. "I'm falling in love with you too, Lucian. It scares me a little how quickly this has happened. But it feels right." Lucian's face lit up with joy. He pulled her into his arms, kissing her with a tenderness that made her hear to ache. When they finally broke apart, they were both smiling like fools. "So, what happens now?" Michaela asked. "Now," Lucian replied, "we keep building our lives together and separately. You open your shop, I figure out what I want to do beyond the family business, and we see where this journey takes us. It sounded so simple when he put it that way, but Michaela knew there would be challenges ahead. Richard Devereux hadn't given up. He had merely retreat. To regroup. Society would have opinions about their relationship, and they were still learning about each other, still discovering if what they had could last beyond the initial attraction. But in that moment, standing in the moonlight outside the greenhouse where Lucien's mother had once found joy, Michaela chose to believe that love could overcome all obstacles, that what they had found together was worth fighting for. "I like the sound of that," Michaela said, smiling up at him. "Together and separately." Lucien kissed her again, sealing their commitment to each other and to the future they hoped to build. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. As they walked hand in hand through the garden, Michaela thought about how far they had come since that moment in the Devereux dining room, when Lucien had invited her to Paris as a cruel joke. Neither of them could have imagined that his attempt to humiliate her would lead to this, a genuine love that had transformed them both. The path ahead wouldn't be easy, but Michaela had never been afraid of hard work, and with Lucien by her side, supporting her dreams while pursuing his own, she felt ready for whatever the future might bring. 1 year later, Michaela stood in her flower shop, Michaela's Garden, arranging a display of spring tulips in the front window. The shop had been open for 10 months now and was doing better than she had dared to hope. She had built a loyal clientele who appreciated her unique arrangements and warm personal service. The bell above the door chimed, and Michaela turned to see her brother Marcus entering the shop. Now, in his final year of community college, he had grown taller and more confident over the past year. "Hey, sis," he greeted her with a hug. "The place looks great. Those new roses you got in yesterday are amazing." "Thanks," Michaela replied with a smile. "They're from a local grower who specializes in heirloom varieties. How did your engineering final go?" "Aced it," Marcus said proudly. "Professor Wilson said my design was one of the best he's seen from a student." "That's wonderful," Michaela exclaimed, genuinely proud. "We should celebrate. Dinner tonight? My treat." "Actually," Marcus said, "I'm meeting some friends to study for our last final. Rain check?" "Of course," Michaela agreed. "I'm just so proud of you, Marcus. Mom and Dad would be too." A shadow of sadness crossed Marcus's face at the mention of their parents, but it was quickly replaced by a smile. "They'd be proud of both of us. Look at what you've built here, Michaela. Your own business, thriving. And you've never lost sight of who you are, no matter what." His words touched Michaela deeply. The past year had been a whirlwind of changes, challenges, and growth. Opening the shop, building her business, navigating her relationship with Lucien, all while staying true to herself, had not been easy, but it had been worth it. "Speaking of people who are proud of you," Marcus continued with a teasing grin, "where's Lucien today? Usually he's hanging around here like he owns the place." "He's in Paris," Michaela replied, "meeting with some investors for his new project. He'll be back tomorrow." After stepping back from his role in the family business, Lucien had spent months exploring different opportunities before finding his passion. He was now opening a foundation that would provide business education and startup funding for underprivileged young entrepreneurs. The irony that the formerly entitled heir was now helping others build their own futures wasn't lost on either of them. "It's been a year, right?" Marcus asked. "Since that whole Paris trip that started everything?" Michaela nodded. 1 year next week. "Did you ever imagine it would turn out like this?" Marcus gestured around the shop. "Your own business, a relationship with the guy who used to be your boss's son. It's like something out of a movie." "No," Michaela admitted with a laugh. "I definitely didn't see this coming." After chatting a while longer, Marcus left to meet his friends, and Michaela returned to her flower arrangements. The afternoon passed quickly with a steady stream of customers. By closing time, Michaela was pleasantly tired, but satisfied with the day's work. As she was locking up, her phone buzzed with a text from Lucien. "Just landed. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. I have news." Michaela smiled, typing back, "Good news, I hope. Missed you." His reply came quickly. "The best news. Missed you more." The next morning, Michaela was arranging a special order of wedding centerpieces when the shop door opened. She looked up, expecting a customer, and instead saw Richard Devereux standing there, looking as cold and imposing as ever in his expensive suit. "Mr. Devereux," she said, surprised. In the year since she had left the mansion, she had only seen Lucien's father a handful of times, and always from a distance. He had never come to her shop before. "Miss Dean," he replied with a curt nod, "your establishment looks quaint." Michaela bit back a sharp response. "Thank you. What can I help you with today? Flowers for Mrs. Devereux, perhaps?" "I'm not here to purchase flowers," Richard said dismissively. "I'm here to discuss my son." Michaela set down her scissors carefully. "Lucien will be back from Paris today. I'm sure he'd be happy to talk to you himself." "It's precisely because he's returning today that I wanted to speak with you first," Richard explained. "I assume he hasn't told you about his meetings in Paris." Unease crept up Michaela's spine. "He mentioned he was meeting with investors for his foundation. Is that what H.E. told you?" Richard's tone was mocking. "Interesting." "What are you implying, Mr. Devereux?" Michaela asked directly. "I'm not implying anything," Richard replied. "I'm stating a fact. Lucien wasn't in Paris to meet investors. He was there to reconnect with Christine Beaumont, the daughter of my business partner. They've known each other since childhood. Her family has an estate near our chateau." Michaela's heart sank. Lucien had never mentioned anyone, Maid Christine. "I don't understand. Why would he lie about that?" "Perhaps because he didn't want to hurt your feelings," Richard suggested, though his tone lacked any real sympathy. "Christine's family is like ours. Old money, proper breeding, the right connections. They've always been a good match. Her father and I have encouraged it for years." "If you're trying to upset me, Mr. Devereux, you'll have to do better than that," Michaela said, though she couldn't ignore the doubt his words had planted. "Lucien and I trust each other." "Admirable," Richard said, "but perhaps misplaced in this case. Did Lucien tell you he visited the Beaumont estate while in Paris? That he had dinner with Christine and her parents? That he was photographed leaving a jewelry store on Avenue Montaigne?" Each question felt like a blow. Lucien had mentioned none of these things in their daily calls while he was away. "I have no reason to believe you," Michaela said, her voice steadier than she felt. "You've made your disapproval of our relationship clear from the beginning. This could easily be another attempt to drive us apart." "A reasonable suspicion," Richard acknowledged, "which is why I brought proof." He removed his phone from his pocket, opened a photo album and placed it on the counter between them. The images showed Lucien at what appeared to be a formal dinner with an elegant blonde woman and an older couple. Another showed him entering a high-end jewelry store. A third captured him and the blonde woman walking arm in arm along the Seine. "These could be old photos," Michaela pointed out, though her certainty was wavering. "Or taken out of context. Check the dates," Richard suggested. "They're all from this week. And if you need further confirmation, I believe Christine shared some of these on her social media accounts. You're welcome to look her up. Christine Beaumont. I believe her Instagram is quite popular." Michaela's hand trembled slightly as she picked up her own phone. She rarely used social media, but she opened Instagram and searched for the name. The account was public, and there, posted just yesterday, was a photo of Lucien and Christine at dinner, his arm around her shoulders, both smiling at the camera. The caption read, "Wonderful reunion with an old friend." So, ami connections never fade. Michaela set down her phone, feeling as if the ground beneath her feet had shifted. The evidence was right there, yet it made no sense. Lucien had given no indication that anything was wrong between them. Just last night, he had texted that he missed her, that he had good news. "Why are you showing me this?" she asked Richard, her voice quiet. "Contrary to what you might believe, Ms. Dean, I don't enjoy causing pain," Richard replied. "But I do believe in reality. The reality is that Lucien belongs in a certain world, a world of privilege, tradition, and responsibility. For a time, he convinced himself he could walk away from that. But some things are in our blood. He's a Devereux, and eventually he will return to where he belongs." "With someone like Christine," Michaela finished for him. "Precisely," Richard confirmed. "I thought it would be kinder for you to know now, before, as he tries to let you down gently." or worse, continues this relationship out of some misplaced sense of obligation while pursuing his true desires elsewhere. Michaela looked down at the photos again, at Lucian's arm around Christine, at their smiling faces. Could Richard be right? Had the past year been just a deviation for Lucian, a temporary rebellion against his father and the life he was born to lead? "I appreciate your concern," Michaela said carefully, "but I think I'll wait to hear from Lucian himself." "As you wish," Richard said, collecting his phone. "But consider this. Why didn't he tell you about Christine, about the dinner with her family? If there was nothing to hide, why the secrecy?" With that parting shot, he left the shop, leaving Michaela alone with her doubts and fears. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Michaela went through the motions of helping customers and arranging flowers, but her mind was elsewhere. She checked Christine Beaumont's Instagram again, finding more photos with Lucian from the past week. They looked comfortable together, familiar, like they had a history. When closing time came, Michaela was exhausted from the emotional turmoil. She had planned to meet Lucien at his apartment that evening, but now she wasn't sure if she should go. What would she say to him? How could she ask about Christine without sounding accusatory or insecure? In the end, she decided to go. Whatever was happening, she deserved the truth, and she wouldn't get that by hiding away. Lucien's apartment was in a converted warehouse in a trendy part of the city. When she arrived, he greeted her at the door with a kiss and a bouquet of her favorite flowers, peonies. "I missed you," he said, holding her close. "Paris isn't the same without you." Michaela accepted the flowers and his embrace, but her heart was guarded. "I missed you too. How was your trip?" "Productive," Lucien replied, leading her into the living room. "The investors were impressed with the foundation's progress. We should have the funding secured by next month." No mention of Christine. No explanation for the photos Richard had shown her. Michaela's unease grew. "Is that all that happened in Paris?" she asked, setting the flowers on the coffee table. Lucien hesitated, a flicker of something guilt crossing his face. "What do you mean?" "Did you see anyone else while you were there?" Michaela pressed. "Old friends, perhaps?" Lucien's expression changed to one of confusion. "I had dinner with a few acquaintances, yes. Why do you ask?" "Anyone named Christine Beaumont?" Michaela said directly. Lucien went very still. "How do you know about Christine?" "Your father came to my shop today," Michaela explained, watching his reaction carefully. "He showed me photos of you two together in Paris. She posted them on Instagram as well." "My father," Lucien repeated, anger flashing in his eyes. "Of course. I should have known he would interfere." "Is it interference if he's telling the truth?" Michaela asked. "You were with her. You had dinner with her family. You went to a jewelry store, none of which you mentioned to me." Lucien ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Michaela recognized as a sign of frustratio. "And it's not what you think. Yes, I saw Christine while I was in Paris. Her father is one of the investors in the foundation. I've known their family for years." "And the jewelry store?" Michaela asked, her voice small. Lucien sighed. "I was hoping to do this differently, but..." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "This is what I was buying." He opened the box to reveal a ring, not the ostentatious diamond she might have expected, but a delicate band of rose gold with a small pearl surrounded by tiny diamonds. "It reminded me of you," Lucien said. "Beautiful but not flashy, unique, perfect." Michaela stared at the ring, trying to process what was happening. "You bought me a ring." "I did," Lucien confirmed. "That was the news I wanted to share with you. I was going to take you back to Paris next week for our anniversary and ask you to marry me at the Eiffel Tower, where we had our fiancé kiss." "But Christine," Michaela began, confused. "Is an old friend whose father is investing in my foundation," Lucien explained. "Yes, we had dinner with her parents to discuss the investment. Yes, she was with me when I bought the ring because she helped me choose it. She knows your taste from the few times you've met at charity events. There's nothing romantic between us. There never has been, despite what my father might have insinuated." "The photo of you with your arm around her," Michaela said, her caption about connections that never fade. "We've known each other since we were children," Lucien said. We're friends, nothing more. She knows all about you, about us. In fact, she's been one of our strongest supporters, even helping to convince her father to invest in the foundation, despite my father's disapproval. Michaela felt foolish for doubting him, yet Richard's visit had shaken her. Why didn't you tell me you were seeing her? Because I was planning the proposal, Lucian said simply. I wanted it to be a surprise, and to be honest, I knew my father might try to use my meetings with the Beaumonts against me, against us. I just didn't think he'd go directly to you. He showed me photos, Michaela said. He made it seem like you were reconnecting with her, returning to your old world. My father sees what he wants to see, Lucian replied. He's never accepted that I've changed, that what I feel for you is real and lasting. He can't understand that I'm happier now running the foundation and being with you than I ever was as his heir apparent. Michaela wanted to believe him, but doubt still lingered. Are you sure, Lucien? Are you sure you won't wake up one day and regret leaving that world behind? Regret choosing me? Lucien set the ring box on the coffee table and took both of her hands in his. Michaela, look at me. The world I was born into, the privilege, the expectations, the coldness, it was slowly killing the person I could be. You showed me another way to live, with purpose, with integrity, with love. How could I ever regret that? But your father... My father will never change, Lucien interrupted gently. He'll always believe that wealth and status are what matter most. But I don't share those values anymore. The work I'm doing with the He Foundation, helping young people from disadvantaged backgrounds build their own businesses, that matters. Making a difference in people's lives matters. And loving you, that matters most of all. Tears filled Michaela's eyes. I'm sorry I doubted you. Don't be, Lucien said, pulling her into his arms. My father is manipulative and cunning. He knew exactly how to plant seeds of doubt. I should have been more open about seeing the Beaumonts, surprise proposal or not. They held each other for a long moment, the tension of the day slowly dissipating. So, Lucien said finally, pulling back to look at her, I had this whole romantic proposal planned for Paris next week, but now that the cat's out of the bag, he picked up the ring box again. Maybe we should just consider this a practice run, and I'll do the real thing in Paris as planned. Michaela smiled through her tears. Or maybe you could ask me now, and then again in Paris. I wouldn't mind hearing it twice. Lucien laughed, then grew serious. He slid off the couch and knelt in front of her, holding the open ring box. Michaela Dean, you came into my life when I was at my worst. Arrogant, cruel, empty inside. You showed me what real strength looks like, what integrity and kindness and determination can accomplish. You made me want to be better, not for you, but because of you. Because you helped me see the man I could be if I tried. I love you more than I ever thought possible, and I want to spend the rest of my life by your side, supporting your dreams, building our future together. Will you marry me? Michaela's heart felt full to bursting. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. Lucien slipped the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit. Then he pulled her into a kiss that felt like a promise, a beginning, a future unfolding before them. Later that evening, as they sat on Lucien's balcony watching the city lights, Michaela couldn't help but think about how far they had come, from a cruel bet to a proposal, from mistrust to love, from two people from different
worlds to partners building a shared future. What are you thinking about? Lucien asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. About how much has changed in a year, Michaela replied. If you had told me when you invited me to Paris that we would end up here, I would never have believed it. I wouldn't have believed it either, Lucien admitted. But I'm grateful every day that you had the courage to say yes to that invitation, despite knowing it was a cruel joke. Your dignity and grace changed everything, changed me. We changed each other, Michaela corrected gently. I'm not the same person I was a year ago either. I've learned to take risks, to trust my heart, to believe that I deserve good things. You deserve everything good in this world, Lucien said, bringing her hand to his lips. "And I intend to spend my life making sure you know that." The next day, Michaela was arranging a new display of spring flowers when the shop door opened. She looked up, half expecting to see Richard Devereux again, but instead found an elegantly dressed blonde woman standing there, Christine Beaumont. "Hello," Christine said with a warm smile. "You must be Michaela. I'm Christine. I hope you don't mind me stopping by." "Not at all," Michaela replied, though she felt a flutter of nerves. "It's nice to meet you properly." "Likewise," Christine said, looking around the shop with genuine interest. "Your shop is lovely." "Lucien told me all about it, but it's even more charming than I imagined." "Thank you," Michaela said. "Can I help you with something? Are you looking for flowers?" "Actually," Christine replied, "I wanted to apologize for any misunderstanding my photos might have caused. Lucien called me last night and explained what happened with his father. I had no idea Richard would use our innocent dinner as ammunition against your relationship." "It's not your fault," Michaela assured her. "Richard Devereux is ... Dermond." "He is that," Christine agreed with a knowing smile. "I've known him since I was a child, and he's always been intimidating. But you should know, Lucien has never been happier than he is with you. All of us who knew him before can see the difference. You've brought out the best in him." Michaela was touched by Christine's sincerity. "Thank you for saying that and for helping him choose the ring. It's perfect." "He knew what he wanted," Christine replied. "I just helped him find it. The man is completely smitten with you, you know. Wouldn't stop talking about you the entire time we were shopping." They both laughed, and Michaela felt the last of her doubts melting away. Christine wasn't a rival. She was an ally. Someone who wanted Lucien to be happy, just as Michaela did. "Would you like a tour of the shop?" Ella offered. "And maybe some coffee? I have a small sitting area in the back room where I meet with wedding clients." "I'd love that," Christine accepted with a smile. As they chatted over coffee, Michaela learned that Christine was an art curator who traveled extensively for her work. She was engaged to a museum director she had met in London, and they were planning a wedding for the following spring. "You must do the flowers," Christine insisted. "From WH at Lucien tells me your arrangements are the most beautiful in the city." "I'd be honored," Michaela replied, genuinely pleased by the request. By the time Christine left an hour later, Michaela felt as if she had made a new friend. Another unexpected gift from her relationship with Lucien connections to people she might never have met otherwise. The next week, true to his word, Lucien took Michaela to Paris to celebrate their anniversary. Despite already being engaged, he got down on one knee at the top of the Eiffel Tower and proposed again, much to the delight of the tourists around them who broke into applause when Michaela said yes. They spent a magical week in the city where their story had begun, revisiting the flower markets, the chateau, and all the places that held special memories for them. On their last evening, Lucien had a surprise for Michaela. "There's somewhere I want to take you," he said as they finished dinner at a small cafe near the Seine. "Somewhere we haven't been before." He led her to a quiet street in a charming neighborhood, stopping in front of a storefront with a for sale sign in the window. "What do you think?" Lucien asked, gesturing to the shop. "It has good bones, great natural light, and the neighborhood gets plenty of foot traffic." Michaela looked at him in confusion. "It's a lovely space, but why are we here?" "I was inking," Lucien began, suddenly a bit nervous, that maybe Michaela's garden could use a Paris location. Not right away, of course, but someday, when you're ready. Michaela stared at him in shock. You want me to open a second shop? In Paris? Only if you want to, Lucien said quickly. It was just an idea, I thought. I thought maybe we could split our time between New York and Paris eventually. The foundation work brings me here regularly anyway, and you love the city. You've been planning this, Michaela realized. For how long? Since I knew I wanted to marry you, Lucien admitted. I want to build a life with you, Michaela. A life that includes all the things that matter to us, your shop, my foundation work, the cities we love. Michaela looked at the storefront again, trying to imagine it filled with flowers, with her designs, with her vision. It wasn't hard to picture. Michaela's garden, Paris, she said softly. It has a nice ring to it. So you like the idea? Lucien asked hopefully. I love it, Michaela replied, throwing her arms around his neck. I love you. I love you too, Lucien said, holding her close. More than I ever thought possible. 1 year after that fateful invitation, sure, I've never seen Paris. Michaela found herself exactly where she was meant to be. In the arms of the man who had once wanted to humiliate her, but had instead fallen in love with her strength, her dignity, her grace. The future stretched out before them, filled with possibilities they would explore together. A wedding to plan, a second shop to open, a foundation to grow, and most importantly, a love that had been born in the most unlikely of circumstances, but had blossomed into something beautiful and enduring. As they walked back to their hotel, arm in arm under the Paris sky, Michaela thought about how sometimes life's most painful moments could lead to its greatest joys. How a cruel invitation could become the first step on a journey to true love. How two people from different worlds could build a bridge between them, strong enough to support all their dreams. Lucien seemed to read her thoughts. Happy anniversary, he said, kissing her temple. Thank you for saying yes that day. It changed everything. It did, Michaela agreed with a smile. And I'd say yes a little over again. In the City of Lights, their future had never looked brighter. 1 year after that, on a beautiful spring day, Michaela stood in the restored greenhouse at the Devereux mansion. No longer just Lucien's family home, it was now the headquarters of the Devereux Foundation for Young Entrepreneurs, with the greenhouse serving as both a working space for Michaela's garden and a training facility for floristry students from disadvantaged backroom DS. The greenhouse had been transformed under Michaela's care. Lush plants filled every corner, and workstations were set up for students to practice arranging flowers. A small plaque near the entrance read, Elise Devereux Greenhouse, a tribute to Lucien's mother, who had first loved this space. Are you ready? Asked Jasmine, Michaela's best friend and maid of honor, adjusting the simple crown of white flowers in Michaela's hair. More than ready, Michaela replied with a serene smile. She wore a gown of ivory silk that flowed around her like water. In her hands, she carried a bouquet of peonies, roses, and sprigs of lavender flowers that told the story of her journey with Lucien. Outside, in the garden where they had walked together countless times, guests were gathered for the wedding. It was a small ceremony, with only their closest friends and family present. Marcus was there, proudly waiting to walk his sister down the aisle. Christine and her fiancé had flown in from London. Even Mrs. Winters, the former housekeeper, had accepted an invitation, Noticeably absent was Richard Devereux. Despite multiple attempts at reconciliation from Lucien, his father had refused to accept Michaela as his son's chosen partner. It was a wound that had not healed, but one that Lucien had learned to live with. "It's time," Jasmine said, handing Michaela her bouquet. As Michaela stepped out of the greenhouse into the sunlight, she saw Lucien waiting for her beneath an arch of flowers. The look of pure joy and love on his face made her heart soar. Marcus appeared at her side, offering his arm. "Mom and Dad would be so proud," he whispered as they began the walk toward Lucien. "They would be proud of both of us," Michaela replied softly. When they reached Lucien, Marcus placed Michaela's hand in his with a warm smile. "Take care of each other," he said simply. "Always," Lucien promised. The ceremony was brief but meaningful. They exchanged vows they had written themselves, speaking of transformation and growth, of seeing and being seen, of finding home in each other's hearts. As they were pronounced husband and wife, Lucien pulled Michaela into a kiss that felt like a beginning of their marriage, of their shared future, of all the dreams they would build together. At the reception, held in the garden under twinkling lights, Lucien surprised Michaela with a special gift. He led her to a small table where a document in a frame waited. "What is this?" Michaela asked, picking it up. "The deed to the Paris storefront," Lucien explained. "It's in your name, paid in full. No strings." Tears filled Michaela's eyes as she recognized the echo of the story's ending she had once imagined. "So now what?" she asked, repeating the words from her dream. Lucien stepped closer, his eyes filled with love. "Now I thank the woman I once underestimated for teaching me how to love," he said softly. "And I promise to spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of that love." Michaela set down the deed and wrapped her arms around her husband. "You already are," she whispered. As they danced under the stars, surrounded by friends and family, flowers and music, Michaela marveled at the journey that had brought them here, from a cruel bet to a lifetime commitment. From uninvited in Paris to cherished and chosen, always and forever. In the end, she had arrived in grace and left with his heart. And he had found in her the love that would transform his life forever. The end.